Hi folks, welcome back to my basement machine shop, woodworking shop, electronics workbench, ham radio shack. The basement is mine. It's got all my tools and stuff. And today we're going to be working on my 80-plus-year-old LeBlanc lathe. I had worked on it before, started making a video. It wasn't really what I needed. There we go. I don't want you to be too crooked. And I ended up making a video right before this about 2 tool posts that I rebuilt so that it would fit this lathe. But what started was that the lathe itself, it's been neglected a little. For 80 years old, I'm surprised it's in as good a shape as it is. But there are a few things that I need to fix. And now, because it's a week and a half later, I'm starting take 2 of this. I actually have the parts, so I can show you what I have to do. So I started cleaning it up, greasing it. Some of these tailstock pieces, I'm going to have to weld something on the back because they don't push out correctly when you do the tailstock. This one comes out. Most of them don't. So I'm going to have to figure out something there. But that's secondary. The worst that they do is get stuck a little inside. More importantly, on this lathe, there are a few items. And one, I assumed my floor was perfectly level and flat when I put this machine in. And for the most part, I put a level on the lathe, not a high precision level as they recommend, but a level, and it's really pretty close. But a couple of the legs aren't touching. So I have to shim those. That's number one. I have to put a long bar in here and try to wiggle this chuck and see how bad the main bearing is. I'm hoping it's not bad. It's really hard for me to tell. Thirdly, I decided to take care of the cross slide. And I'm going to show you, this is the new cross slide nut. And I'm going to lose it in a minute. So I'm going to put you back in the holder for a second. So this is the new cross slide nut. And as you can see, it's tight. There's no slop in this at all. Now I expect I'm going to run it further down in the middle, but because I expect these to be slightly worn out. But here's the old one, and I'm going to show you just how loose this is. I don't know how well that comes through on the film, but you know, it's got 1/16 of an inch of play back and forth, and it's worse in the middle. So this guy it needs to be replaced. Now, I almost died of a heart attack when they told me how much it was. It was nearly $500 for this little piece. And I had thought, you know what? I'll slice it across here, clamp it together tighter, put screws in or braze it, try to make it tighter on the threads. And that just didn't sit right with me. It was never going to be correct if I kept doing that. So I bought this one. I spent the money. And as you can see, this one is snug, which is the way it should be. Oh. And the very end it hangs up a little. Here it spins a little, but there's still no play in it, which is good. So anyway, that's one thing I have to fix. The other is all the wipers. They are so full of gunk that I've got to replace them all. And they're no longer available, the exact ones, but I have sort of a universal kit from LeBlond, and I have to cut them a little and stick them in there. So that's a project. There's 4 on this main carriage. There's supposed to be some on the tailstock, and I have yet to find out where, unless they're embedded inside someplace. But that's a project. So that's it. Level or shim, check the run out or play, fix the cross slide, put the wipers on, and then give it a good rub down and a good oiling. That's today's task. So I'm gonna stop here for a second. I'm going to just take off one on camera, but I'll end up taking them all 4 off, and we're going to go over to the table because there's going to be some cutting and fitting going on. But basically, there's 3 little screws that come out. So that's one, and I had a shim in here. I'm not going to use that. And on the top is a little oiler. So I'm assuming I'm going to have to pre-oil these. And the back only has 2 screws. And again, I put a shim in it. So that's the back one. And this is the front one. So we're going to take off the other 2. And then we're going to head over to the bench. Well, let's see how this is going to work out. Now the glasses don't have too many smudges. So this one has, hard to see, and someone has added a piece of felt to it to build it up. This has a little bit of a ramp on it, so I have to fix that. The oiler seems to work because the oil that I put in the other day is dripping through. The other end is the same, has a bevel, and then the 2 on the front side, this has a piece of hard, rubberized, it almost feels like, piece that fits in here. So I'm thinking maybe the others were supposed to have it. And this has one kind of busted up. The one on the back, somebody actually broke the bolt out. So I can't really tighten that 3rd bolt up. So it might be a little bit of a pain. But we'll get there. I think with new felt, anything I do will be an improvement. So let's just go with that. And I think I'm going to reuse these. I think these are just blocks to kind of squeeze it in. I cleaned this stuff up a little bit, but Not going overboard. Trying to clean some of the grease off of it. That's how hard it's gotten. So let's take care of these two first. So this is the bag they sent me. Oh, well, that's interesting. I thought I saw some backers in here. Well, there's one of the big pieces. Yeah, the felt has a backer on it. So that will make it much easier. Of course, it's a little too long, but it's the right. It looks like it's going to fit pretty good. Well, that's really a wonderful thing. But what bothers me, and maybe it's because it's a universal kit, is I've got 4 left over. Now, I think they're supposed to go on the tailstock. I guess I'm going to have to pull the tailstock out and look, but I didn't see anything before that I recall. And I thought I was going to have to really carve a shape into these. But I think instead, I just have to figure out if it goes. It must go this way. It's got to go that way. Yes. So what I have to do is simply cut it to the right length. So we'll try that. Wow, and there you have it. That'll compress just nice. Just nice. It might be a little too big. I might have to trim it down a little. But boy, that beats the heck out of trying to shape that all. Especially where the backer was missing on one and it's pretty tough shape on the other. Number 2. All right. Backers. Well, not going to get quite as lucky on those. I have to think about that. It's possible, certainly on this one where the backer is still in good shape. The problem is there's a lot of angles. There's an angle there, there's an angle there, an angle there, and then straight down. And this is more rectangular. And they're mirror images of each other on the new ones. So I could cut it into 3 pieces. What I may do is I might cut and it sure is a lot thinner. So what I might do is I might cut this felt right off of here. It's glued on, so you lose a bit of the felt to the hard part of the glue. Okay, so the problem is that this side is the end that was able to peel off, and this side I cut a little too thin, I think. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it all fit best way. Probably gonna jam that in there. Leave a little space at the end. I'll get back to you when I get done. Well, supposedly practice makes perfect. It may not make perfect, but it gets a lot better. Now I was able to peel this one off of this piece for the second one pretty easily. And the only thing I'm worried about is this edge is a little hard. And because that's where the glue was, I'm just going to cut that back a little. Get rid of the glue on that edge, which drags across the ways. And over here, there isn't much glue. And in fact, I won't be using much of that over there anyway. This has a little glue, so we're going to trim this back a little. Like so. Now this one will do the same thing as I did to the other one. And it turns out that I don't need this end piece at all. So I'm going to cut that off. Wow. So that gets that corner pretty good. And this piece fit in, and I think I got to cut I cut a small end off of it. So I'm going to do that to get it in. But because this metal is broken, I don't really know how far down to go, but I think that will work pretty good. So I put the other one in, and that worked really well. Now I'm going to put this one in. Okay, I put these in, the two big ones. They look really pretty good. And I'm going to put the back two in, which were the easy ones, supposedly. Watch, I'm going to have to eat my words. And that's all there is to it, it looks like. I'll oil them up a little. And they're bent too. Those screws are bent. Oh, and they're two different screws. So people have lost screws. Put other screws in. All right. So be it. Wow. Well, there's task number one. Oh yeah, that's wiping really good. All right, cross slide. That's a little different story. I've already adjusted it so that there's no play in that. And the cross slide nut has to fit up through here at just the right time. So that's what's going next. Get close, there we are. So now, if you notice, this has a fitting on it. It's supposed to be a grease cup. And this guy has a little hole in him. What I'm expecting is that this block has a tube that shoots this way. Ugh. And because it's certainly not on that side. Oh, and there's a little hole in there. So this drips down into that. So now let's see. This ought to be an interesting. Wow, I don't know how this is going to get up here. Oh, well, I got that far and no further. Got it almost flush, but I just don't have any pushing power. Oh, there we go. All right. This nut was only finger tight. I might just take a pair of channel locks and snug him up a little. Oh, well, he fell into a slot. That's not good. Oh, I don't like that. Guess that was worn so much. So let's see. All right. Well, that's pretty good. I'm gonna go get. Wow. I'm gonna go get a pair of slip joint pliers. I cringe whenever people don't use a wrench or a socket and they use pliers. Well, I guess I have to slap myself on the wrist for that one. So now goes like that. And there's these 3 Allens, which I would think should have been hex, just because of where they are. I had to cut an Allen wrench back to get them out. Whereas if they were hex, I could just put a wrench on there. All right, so this is in, but I think these would have been much easier if they were hex, because you could simply get a wrench in there. But what I pulled out were Allens, and I had to actually take an Allen wrench and cut it so that the short end was even shorter. All right. Ooh, almost all the way in. It would make sense that the carriage needed the most work, since the cross slide, not the carriage, the cross slide tool post holder would need the most work, because this is where a lot of the action is back and forth on this. And I'm trying to get these in by hand as much as I can so I don't have to fight doing an 1/8 of a turn or a 1/6 of a turn at a time here. When I get snug, I'm going to have to put a screwdriver behind it so it doesn't do that. it's in. I had to reshape my tip a little. I had to take it off slightly with a stone. So this looks really good. Now, something that may cause me trouble in the future, but this is certainly better than it was. This used to have a tapering jig on the back. And that apparently had a center to hold the end of this shaft. And I'm expecting that it pushed the bearing back here. I may have to make something that bolts on here like an angle and put a live center, or put a center of some sort with a bearing to press against that. But whoever, this was disabled before I got it, even though it was still hanging on the machine. Whoever had disabled it reworked this up here slightly so that I don't have any play. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. And I got to tell you, this is wonderful. I've not had this ever. And that needs to be in. There you go. So now I'm going to try to flip this over. This sucker's heavy. And see if this has any felt pads in it. I don't think it does. Never put metal on the ways. No, this doesn't have any, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to have some extra felts. All right, I'm going to clean the ways a little, put that tailstock back on, and move on to the next thing. That's these two down. Felts, cross slide nut. 2 down, 2 to go, I think. I'm going to check the chuck and then put some shims under the feet, if wherever they need it. All right, I'm going to stop you again. Piece of chunk. I have chucked a large piece of pipe in here, and I don't feel any. Boy, if there's any movement, I can't feel it. Certainly for the jobs that I do, this bearing up top is still good. So I think, all right, so I still have 2 tasks. One is to put shims underneath, and I'm not going to show you that. I mean, that's just a matter of trying to find different shim stock and just tap it in. The other is, find out why so many of these don't have a spot for the tailstock to push against, the screw in the tailstock. Only this live center, and these 2 chucks, and then these 12 adapters, and this adapter. They all have ends on them. I showed you this piece here, which is what the screw of the tailstock pushes against. But none of these do. I don't even know why I'm holding on to that. That's a useless thing, but it's there. And certainly a couple of my live centers over here don't have it. So I'm going to do something with it. I haven't decided what. I'm certainly not going to put a slot on it. Depending on how hard they are, I may drill them out and put a rod in there, just glue a rod in so it has something to bump against. That's probably my best bet. So, we'll see. All right, I'll get back to you. I do have a third task, and that is to check under here and all these and fill these. I filled everything this side. So I still have 3 tasks. Chuck's level oil. We've made it to the end. I've done everything I'm going to do to the lathe. I've not done everything I'm going to do to my Bridgeport, but I did find the proper wrenches to keep the most common wrenches next to these 2 machines. I believe I have to do that to the 9-inch lathe, but that's not nearly as critical. So, where did I leave off? Because it's been probably over a week now. I needed to put support under some of the legs. 3 of the 6 legs needed shims so that there was weight on all the legs. I found all the wrenches I need, and Allen wrenches and so forth, for the various nuts and bolts on here, up here. So they're going to reside up here. This is a special tool. It's actually a ball joint remover, I believe. But that is the end result of when I want to take these off. I can just do this and pop it out, as well as the ones, the 2 centers that don't have a stub on the end. There's the 2 centers there and these guys. So I've got a washer made for this one, and this one I can't do it that way, so I have to put a clamp on there to hold that on. The system is thoroughly oiled up. It's above the low mark, but it's not quite high enough, but that's fine. I did check this with a pipe. I don't know if I showed you that. The last I remember is I took this off, slid it off, lifted it off to check to see if there were any felts under it, and it's a little too heavy. I'm a little too out of shape, and that prevented me from doing much work for about a week. The lower back didn't like that at all, and I should know better. But I believe that's all I had. I put this nut in. I think we went over that. This thing is now nice and solid. I cleaned everything. Checked my stops here to make sure I had the nuts and bolts for that. Cleaned out that guide. Cleaned up most of the shafts. Found the proper wrenches for those 2 tool posts, and the wrenches for those 2 posts are multi-use. They're either on the tailstock or sitting on the shelf. And all these tool holders, I found the wrenches, or have the wrenches in one place now for sitting up here. The only thing that's behind here are these 2 angle blocks, but that's where they can reside. Didn't put any wrenches on for any of that stuff. Well, that in particular. The wrenches for the others, boring bars, they're all up there. That's fine. Have the keys for the jaws that go on here. Check that all out. So I think that's it. I think the big thing was that I had to shim this, which I did. The back 2 feet were a little low, and 1 foot on the tail stock end was a little low. So I'm really happy this thing is all clean. It's got all the parts to it. I do have to do a little something with the chuck. I haven't decided. It works fine. It's just, I think it needs to be pulled apart and cleaned again, and maybe oiled. So that's it, guys. I have two more projects in line. The first one is to double check this for level. This is a Bridgeport M head, not a J head. It's with a serial number M16117. It uses an M2 collet. It doesn't use R8s. But we'll get to that. So what I talk about getting off track. So I want to make sure this is level, both directions, which I thought it was. Then I'm going to remove the vise and make sure the head is plumb, because I think it's off about 2 degrees. I don't think it's square. So that's a project. Another project, because I just watched a whole bunch of videos on end mills. Another project is to go through all my end mills and see if in fact I have any carbides, and if they're 2-flute, 3-flute, or 4-flute. And finally, for those of you that are in the electrical end, I have 3 amp probe clamp-on meters. I probably have 5, but I have 3 that were working, and now I'm down to 2. So I want to get the third one working again. And that'll be another video. Hopefully the amp probe video will be short, and so won't the Bridgeport, but we'll see. So if you stuck it out this far, thanks a lot. Hope you found it interesting. Nothing I did is a how-to. I can't believe how much tighter my carriage is. My cross slide, rather. It's just absolutely wonderful. And until I started cleaning, I didn't even know there was a bolt back here. That's how bad it was. And I have a couple of wrenches down here. I still don't know what they go to. But they're residing here for now. That's fine. They're out of the way. So, thank you. If you want, subscribe. If you don't, that's fine. Comments. I always love comments. I don't get many, which is fine. I get a few likes. Like it. If you don't like it, dislike it. But please leave me a comment on why, so how I can improve myself here. And I think that's going to be it, guys. Please watch the rest of my videos. I'm going to try to keep them coming out as projects come up. So you guys and gals, all have a good day. And hopefully you'll catch me on the next video.